Yeah, 45 seconds.
Okay. So hi everyone.
Hi.
Sorry I missed Tuesday. Gina didn't relay my situation. I was in Hot Springs, Arkansas Tuesday.
Well, I said you were likely to be
Hopefully.
late.
The order to special meeting October 26, 2023. If you all please join me for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Alderman Ross.
Here.
Alderman Osteen.
Here.
Alderman Rose. Here. Alderman Hoffman.
Here.
Mayor Harmson.
Here.
Alderman Schuman. Alderman Rucker.
Here.
How are you?
All right, we do have a quorum. We have no unfinished business, no new business. Tonight we're at 2024 fiscal year operating budget, and I'm going to turn it over to the city administrator, Gina Woods, please.
Mayor. So hopefully tonight we will be a little quicker. We'll make up for it, I'm sure, on Monday. Page 17 is where general funds, so we're going to go through. I'm just going to hit the highlights of the revenue summary, and then we'll go through the list of departments. And I've got page numbers already marked, so I'll help you with that. Carrie Patterson's not here, and Mike Ray is out. He's at a conference, but I got his highlights for his department. We always tell the management team if you have no capital and your O&M did not fluctuate more than 5%, then no necessarily need to come. So that's kind of what we started a couple years ago. Carrie Patterson seems to be the one that it hits. I know a few of them, Tara and Carrie Bell as well, but they come anyway. So somebody gets the benefit of that. But if you do have direct questions for Carrie, feel free to email him or talk to him. But he didn't have capital and didn't have much fluctuation. So we'll just hit just some highlights is what I explained to everybody to do on their O&M and capital, and then the rest is just you guys lead with questions. Page 17 is where the general fund revenue is. I'm just going to hit a couple highlights, but happy to answer any questions. So very first one that everybody is interested in is our sales tax collection. About anywhere from 32 to 35% of all our revenue collected is basically the sales tax. Now, some enterprise funds don't have a sales tax piece unless there's a subsidy, but it's about a third of our revenue, sometimes a little more. Unfortunately, what we budgeted, I think we've seen our peak between 21 and 22. 23, I'm estimating is going to end about 6% under budget, but around 2% under previous year. So very little under previous year under budget. However, I've increased projected 2024 just shy of 6%. It's 5.8. That does include an assumption that we will have a full year of collections on the new marijuana tax. Right now we have one dispensary, but I noticed a sign was going up, so unless something we know different with licensing that we know that they don't, or they know that we don't know, but anyway, right now we do only have one dispensary, but we do have done some estimates. I do not single that out in its own line item because it's our responsibility to be confident and not letting people know their sales tax for retail. So we try to do that in the budget, so we're not giving out secrets that we're not supposed to have. So if you take away, and basically it's anywhere from 2 to 250, 200, 250,000 estimate for that. We'll know more. First year we'll have a better trend of what happens previous year. So that does include that. Franchise fees overall was going to end up about 3% higher than last year, or actually budget, and then I've increased it, projected about another 3%. So I think a combination of the franchise fees, those are people here, either second homeowners staying longer, or hotels fuller, or full-time residents. So we know that we've had a little bit of population gain, so and a combination of maybe some rates, when it comes to electric. But anyway, so overall, those are steadily still inclining. Permits and licenses, the first 3 to 4 are pretty flat or, pretty steady, I guess I should say. Building permits, I estimate kind of brainstorming with Ron, of course, what we think is gonna come in and what, the timing of different permits. We did have a peak this year, which is awesome because we have several big projects still in the works, so they all happen to come in the same year. But if you notice on 2024, I project pretty conservatively, just because yes, we're probably gonna have some other big projects, but we'd rather have extra at the end of the year and not spend on something we're not sure. So that's really why you see the gap. And this year we did have some bigger projects. Really, as far as fees, I will say the park and park concessions, I'd stated this the other night. Eric and I need to reassess because I don't think I inputted the correct numbers from Eric when it comes to the fee side, and then there was a couple questions on parks on the expense side that are mirrored with those fees. So that is to be determined. We'll look into that. The other one I really want to highlight is municipal court fines. As you can see, we are on a downward trend for the last several years. Obviously, court fines are directly related to tickets written and court activity. We did have some SB 5 items over the last few years that has limited some of the fines, but I will say that we are going to end this year higher than I projected. Again, I was very conservative last year when I budgeted 2023, seeing how we have been on a downward trend. So it's happy to say, maybe it has something to do with our new prosecutor, not sure. I don't know. We never want to push revenue, but just knowing where the sources of these line items. So maybe this is kind of settling back in, but again, I was conservative. At least we'll meet next year.
I can tell you that increased some of the fines we're doing on some of the more severe stuff. So
yeah,
at least on a per case basis on some of the more severe stuff, we're fines are up.
So anyway, you see that little bit, but I didn't want to be too optimistic for the next year, but I didn't lower it for a lot this year. The next page.
Hang on.
Okay, sorry.
I have a few questions.
Okay.
Going back to permits, inspections, et cetera, would that number increase with the development that is currently underway regarding the reserve, the Oasis, et cetera, as far as additional inspections, permits, et cetera, required?
Well, I know Ron will give you more details, but the $240,000 where we think we're going to end this year, a lot of times they pay up front, and so if they've started that process now.
We have issued all the permits, all 10 permits for the preserve.
Okay.
So
As far as
all
inspections, would that require for every building?
No, there's no additional fees for the inspections. That's what these permit fees are for. That covers the inspections. So they've paid all of those up to date.
All right, question number 2 on sales tax revenue. Where does the projected revenue from the Oasis play into this? Is that not being included, or?
Well, as I have learned, we know the project's coming, and we know they're gonna have a big retail piece, but they don't have to have the amusement park done until 2025. So I'm not going to project 2024 and just hope they have something open, because it won't be something all or nothing. So I was really going by now. I'm not gonna project anything like that. It's one, their deadline's 25 for that piece.
Latest newspaper says 25 is coming.
Right.
Yeah, 25,
So
26.
anyway, 24, I just really didn't have an effect. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. That's all.
Okay. So next page, a couple of things I want to highlight. Interest earned, and you're going to see this in all our interest earned. The changes of the board was pleasure for the board to agree to, and our change in our investment strategy has really benefited, which that was why we did it, and we were hoping, but it probably, rates and stuff changed. So 300+% from what we estimated, and then next year, I know Carrie really has a little bit to not really knowing what rates are going to do. We were just kind of flat for next year, but very excited that.
Specifically on that, I had that as a highlight, but I want to expound upon that because I was very much behind that and in support of that measure over a number of years. Just to give you an idea, I went through, unless I made a mathematical mistake, but the increase between 22 and 24, $600,000 between all the different accounts, over $500,000. So it's quite a bit of revenue that we are receiving now with the increase with the new investment program, so.
And that was a big change. It was an unprecedented change for the city and kind of went out on a limb. We've had forever been so long with one bank and everything and all our eggs in one basket. And so that was, of course, the market's going to play a little bit, but definitely a positive. I always explain administrative reimbursement. I know you're going to see this as the incoming side and the outgoing side for every enterprise fund. So administrative reimbursement does fluctuate, and if you notice what I had budgeted in 23 is going to be different in 23 because I budget what I think is going to happen, and then what ends up happening, we do correct it, and that is something the auditors are very specific and checks all my calculations for that. But basically, what administrative reimbursement, for a reminder for those new, the administrative services that general funds supplies to the enterprise funds are accounted for. So we have general government and general funds. Well, it is unfair for airports, water, sewer, transportation is not an enterprise fund, but to use the services of IT and overhead and HR and accounts receivable and accounts payable. So there's a calculation that I do, a cost accounting calculation that I do that kind of pays their share, but that also includes engineer services, and that's not tied to specific projects that they pay their share. So you will see that fluctuate up and down, but the 790 basically is kind of a non-cash, but an accounting book calculation. So general fund's just not supporting all the administrative functions plus other things for the other enterprise funds. TIF developer is another one that you're going to see in the incoming for general fund, but out of economic development, it'll have an expense. This is when we have our big projects that have funding agreements, and they hand us $50,000 or $60,000, and we pay invoices off of that 50 and 60. So in theory, they should match dollar for dollar, but sometimes timing things it isn't. So we obviously processed a couple of projects last year. One that didn't come into fruition, but one that did. And so that will fluctuate. Very minimal, I think I put it at 70, but 70 in is also 70 out. So if you change that 70 on either side, it doesn't change the bottom dollar. And then transfers from CIT, when we go through the different departments or we talk about the capital list page, keep in mind that's page 11, that will outline what those projects are, and that's basically tied to specific projects. Last year, that 326,000 was tied to the Phoenix Park parking lot and partial funding of the Osage Beach Park parking lot. Neither of those projects, they got some done at $21,000 worth of done. Some of the design got completed, and then the Osage Beach City Park parking lot, as we discussed the other night, is moving forward. So I kept the same theory of the dollar amount, a little less, 305 net what was going to be transferred this year to that parking lot. Again, it's a new budget, so you can reassess whether you want that. The other new item was tied to the Veterans Memorial, but again, that's up to board's discretion. Once we get to those projects, whether the project stays or not, or whether that's the funding.
I have a question. The parking lot of the park, which is $600,000, which that is, you've already approved that, it's happening?
No, this is just the budget workshops. The budget itself, at the end of this budget process, and we've done this different, like the end of the third night, if you guys want to, at the end of the night, decide like, hey, what do you want to change? Or do you want to make motions as we happen on specific things? But at this point, nothing's been approved. This is just going through it. And then either you give me back recommendations and I go create a draft.
I was just making sure.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
Thank you.
Gina, I have a question as well. Can you explain what falls under insurance settlement?
So anything out of general fund side that we have to pay, our deductibles, if we pay out of pocket, self-insured, this is the dollar piece that we get the insurance money from our insurance. So I'll pick on Todd. No, Todd's not here. Tim's here. They hit a deer with a car, or something, and then we get insurance payment and we paid it out on the expense side.
Oh, but he was asking if Grand Harbor.
Grand Harbor, property Tantera.
Okay, that's all in Seward. We'll talk about that on Monday because that's loaded in there.
Okay.
You've probably seen something with some zeros. Yeah, but that's property and liability insurance checks versus,
There's no insurance.
So that is basically my highlights on general fund. Revenues. Any further questions on that? Okay, no? Okay. Well, we're just gonna, some of these other departments, you'll see very little change. We'll start with the Board of Aldermen, your guys' little budget. I also did for you, page 22. I do have party correction, and I do apologize. There was a few of these, and Kevin's already found some of them here and there, and I'll try to highlight where there might be a correction, and draft 2 will reconcile all those. One thing I did not get funded in here, and I'm so glad the mayor brought it up Tuesday, because I was so focused on ensuring we brought before the board the decision about health insurance for the board, but also I forgot the salary request update. So basically on your all's budget to double the salaries and to provide insurance. Insurance is in there based on estimate. Next week's meeting, you'll have that chapter 125 bill to consider. But I went ahead and budgeted but depends on what you guys decide. So add about 10,000 to your budget because I neglected to estimate salaries correctly, should that change go through. But other than that, there's no big change in your all's conferences. You know, the MML is your big training and conference, and that's in Kansas City next year, or no? Branson next year, so it'll be a little cheaper. Kansas City is always the most expensive place to go. It's in Branson, so so other than that, there's not much change in your all's.
What's mobile devices and services?
That is the mayor's supplement.
It's $540.
Whole year?
So,
$42 a month.
$42 a month?
cheap.
Wish I had $42 a month off that phone payment.
Yeah.
It's $42 well spent. They don't want to sunshine on my personal phone.
We get the government discount.
I was just doing that.
Gina, the training and conferences, $5,000 more projected.
I always budget around 14. It just depends who ends up going.
Because
Who
it was
ends up,
9. for
right, so
23.
not everybody went to MML this last
Okay.
year, but I budget like everybody goes.
Okay.
That's your big one. There's some little things in.
Plus the legislative conference in Jefferson City.
Right, yeah. So I budget, MML's a big chunk of that, and I budget everybody goes, but Bob's right, we have, there's other ones, so.
Thank you.
Couple questions. First of all, I'm very concerned about 2022 actual. I believe there's a mistake there. I'd really like that to be delved into because the board and the mayor's salary by law is set. And this is one way that we can make sure that what we are getting paid is what we're supposed to get paid. I believe that there's been some misposting. The salary should be around $20,150, and the meetings should be probably around $16,500. The salaries don't work out at all with the number of people, with the number of aldermen and the mayor, and I realize there's always a little carry there. This last time in 22, there would have been 1 month where there would have been 2 aldermen paid rather than 1, but still I think there's a mathematical error there. And
I know in 22 you did have an overlap.
That's the way that we can justify that, we are following the state statute on what we're going to be getting.
No, I'll check that. I do know in 2022, we had an overlap because we had a change in the mayor, and so sometimes the month will overlap depending on when they come in and when they end. But anyway, that's easy to check.
The extra overlap should never cost us more than $1,535.
Yeah, I'll look.
Also, due to the fact not your fault, it's the board's fault, and the board and the mayor's fault, we did not get this ordinance passed on what we had discussed at our meeting back in July. So it makes it very difficult for Gina to project what our budget's going to be. I have a number of questions that we didn't get answered. I was hoping we could answer with an ordinance, but we haven't had an ordinance to vote on.
What's on next
And
meeting?
that is, number one, what's health insurance? Okay? Health insurance is in here, but what about life? And I'm not saying I'm in favor of any of this stuff, but life, short-term, vision, dental, is there some of those things that that, you know, those things we need to get answered so that you know what to put in the budget and what, you know, I know some of us are in favor of the insurance, some of us are not. And that all has got to get worked out in the ordinance so we know what to put into the budget.
So some of that I will take the blame because I had been telling the mayor, I'll write that ordinance, as long as we get it by the end of the year, we're good. Well, it is, you will have it in your packet tomorrow that will answer some of that question. So I went back to the notes of the meeting, in the strategic meeting, and when you all said health, I just assumed that meant health, vision, dental, because in our mind, that's what we call our health insurance plan. We have short-term, we have life, we have these other, you know, these other line items, but as far as what we call internally our health program is health, dental, and vision. So that's what I estimated. Again, first reading is next week. And if that changes, that'll just be changes for the board, or changes for draft 2, which is not a big deal. So some of the timing of the ordinance was really mine. But when I call health, you know, when you guys said health, to us, that's what we call the health, dental, and vision. Not the life insurance, not the short term. But again, first reading, you can discuss that, change that, and I'll make that change. So as far as health insurance, obviously, there's only 4 positions getting renewed or at the election. And I did just estimate based on what I think your current situation is because of age and family status, that does make a difference. You know, our full family plan, like if you have spouse and children on a plan, that's $801.50 a month. If you have spouse, it's a little different, but if you're also, for employees, if you're over age 65, you can't even be offered an HSA plan. You have to do our other plan because of, you know, so given those, kind of knowing who you guys are, that's where the 60,000 comes in, but that could change if you have a turnover or something like that. But anyway, I know that's a long answer for that. I did not assume, you guys already benefit from the 125 and the retirement. So health, dental, and vision to us is what we already call our health. So, but next Thursday, that can be settled and I'll adjust it.
Okay. Wish we'd had it done before this. That's all I had.
Gina?
So on the health, so if I understand it right, if this was to pass, we would have to go through the April election before any of those benefits would be paid. So I guess where I'm confused, so there would only be 3 aldermen and 1 mayor, because you're up this year, right? Right. So 4 people for
positions.
8 months.
Yeah, I don't know the timing of getting started, but
right. So
7,
4,
8, yeah.
okay. So 4 positions for 8 months is 32 months. Okay. So that's almost $2,000 a year. So you might want to check that.
Well, I didn't bring that details, but.
According to one of my calculations is, these numbers here are based on all 7 elected officials for 12 months.
No, it is based on the 4 and the current situation. I was guessing, should all of you get reelected, what your insurance options would be and what you would take. And that's how I got my dollar, and they're not operated.
But for whether we're reelected or not, there'll still be 4 individuals.
There'll still be 4.
That'll be eligible.
Right.
Okay? And so the only thing I just think something's not quite right, because there's 32 months, and I think our highest is like 800 just for health. Is that right? Spouse of 2 or more dependents or something.
I'll look.
Okay, great. And then as far as the cell phone service, do we have internet through Spectrum?
Well, we just changing our internet.
So we're away from.
Well, Spectrum is the backup.
We have internet through AirSpring that utilizes AT&T and Spectrum.
Okay. The only reason I ask it, it's not a big deal, but on the cell phone, so if we own our cell phones, right?
We do.
If you have Spectrum internet, which this may not apply to here, you can just sell it for 1 gig a month, it's $14. So it's an opportunity possibly, maybe not. The way you said that, I don't think probably.
Michael, IT can
Just
look
a heads
into
up.
that, but I know that we're on FirstNet and we're also on a government plan and some other
That's fine.
benefits.
That's why I asked if we were on Spectrum. Doesn't sound like we're directly on Spectrum, but I don't know. They may not offer it for business either, so just FYI. That's all I have to ask.
If there's no more questions, we could skim right through the collector because there's not much there. It is what it is until there's a valid issue to consider. Not having a collector is pretty much the same based on, the only thing that fluctuates is the number of licenses, but the collector gets paid per license depending on TARA's activity.
So what activity does the collector actually do?
Well, I mean,
They
I
come
said-
in, don't they?
no.
They never come in?
Not now, not since they no longer have meetings.
Okay,
We email everything. He does that.
okay. So they approve something,
Yeah, they approve liquor licenses.
liquor license,
Yes,
that's
I
it?
email liquor licenses. Mhm.
But by state statute, does the collector have to do that?
No,
Okay.
you don't have to have a liquor.
By our word,
By
by
Maybe
our
this is
ordinance, we
not,
have
maybe
to.
this is not the time to talk about it, but we talked about this last, why do we need one?
we don't.
Put it on the ballot.
You don't have to, but the voters voted to have a collector.
Voters,
So you have to get.
And
Put
it's
it back up on the ballot, I guess. I
Well,
don't
and
know.
it's been a
Twice
few
as
years
bad.
since, it's been a few years since we put it on the ballot, so it's time to do it again. Yeah.
So I'm sorry, but to remove them, it needs to be a ballot issue? Correct. Yeah, well, I mean, I'm suggesting.
And it's been a few years. It was a few years ago we had added it and it didn't pass. Page 24 is city administration. Not much fluctuation, except I did have an increase in training conferences. What Mike and I, and basically it's Mike and I budgeted in 23, there was just not an opportunity. There was a couple conferences and training that we just didn't get the opportunity to go just because of timing. But I did re-put those in, plus should the additional person be added, I did want some training dollars for that person. Other than that, not much fluctuation in O&M, and that's an office chair, because we've been borrowing, begging, and stealing. You'll see a few chairs come around to the different departments. So. Questions on that? I think I'm done talking for a bit. City clerk is page 26.
I don't have anything, nothing really big. On mine, unless anybody has any questions. I'm asking for the same amount of training. The reason my training was so low this year is I went to Minneapolis, but I carpooled with 2 other clerks and we split the room and gas up there, so we got reimbursed from their cities, which helped my budget. So that's why my training stays the same this year, and we're gonna do the same thing. One of my clerks, one of the clerks got a free room to go to Canada for this year, so we're gonna split a room up there, so all the city has to do is pay for the flight and the conference, so it's the same amount as if I was staying here, so that's the only thing. But other than that, nothing else exciting. I'm not asking for any furniture, nothing else, pretty easy. Might need a chair maybe, but I don't think so, I'll just steal it from Gina, she orders them. That's like she just gets it. I'll just steal hers.
I'm the only one getting a chair this year.
Mike wants to deal with records management. What is records management?
Oh, good question. Thank you for bringing that up. I do have a big change. So when I was going through cleaning out since we're starting to do a lot of scanning and putting stuff into digital form, I came across a metal box that Diane had done a lot of the laserfish stuff. Or what are those little microfiche? Well, she did that, which is a great idea, but then she surplused the machine to read all of this stuff. So now I'm going through and trying to find who can read it. So I got with Laserfish, who is the company I'm scanning everything into that drive. Well, I'm going to see how much it's going to cost. I estimate about $5,000 to send it to him so he can put it all into our drive. So then I have it, and that way I don't have to put it into paper and then or go buy a machine so we can read what's there. The stuff that I found, though, most of it is either minutes or ordinances that I already have done in, but I have found some sewer easements and a bunch of building permits and stuff like that those are the only ones that I'm going to do. So estimate around 5,000. I hope it doesn't come in that high. So I just estimated a little high. I couldn't get them to give me an estimate before I had to get my budget paperwork into Gina. That's all that is.
Tara, what is,
Yes.
would the code of action, the increase?
Oh, the codification, that's the laserfish stuff that I'm gonna do.
Okay.
Yep, that's what that is.
Got it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I'll say, and again, if you remember, a couple of meetings ago, I announced that she received a very nice award, so again, congratulations.
Thank you. I'm very happy. It took a long time to get that.
Thank you. Very good.
She's good.
Thanks.
Page 28, treasurer.
pretty much the same as last year. Except for the personnel fees, which, but it's the same group.
You shouldn't have bought a chair, you wouldn't have had to been here.
Yeah.
She decided evidently to pat, I don't know if the chair was on purpose to carry over.
I wouldn't miss this part of the anything.
Carrie stuck out with us Tuesday, didn't he?
I gotta know how to drive after this.
Page 30 is municipal court.
Court hasn't changed anything, we're still, everything's basically the same, actually it all is still the same.
And yes, I know I have a mistake, that Kevin already found that, I will fix that. That $17 in health insurance should have a few zeros by it.
I thought so.
I mean,
He was in a hurry, Gene and I were in a hurry this
Gary's
year.
very
so-
healthy.
exactly.
This is Annie.
Annie's fine, Annie's great. She's just getting to be unhealthy.
Next is Coles, page 32.
Mine is essentially all the same, except for one line down on professional services. As you know, we have several plates spinning in the air at the moment. And if all goes well, that line item won't be used, but if any of them start to wobble, or if all of them all of them need to come down at once, the example I use is if the outlet mall TIF drops at the same time that something else breaks, that's to essentially hire out, probably on a as needed case by case basis, some temporary help if we didn't need to, whether it's title work, an attorney didn't handle something specialized. But that's what that is.
These are estimates based on worst case scenario?
This is worst case scenario. The money's already in the budget, within my purchasing authority, so if we need to hire it out, we can. But it's break glass in case of emergency money. Is that
Those are items,
professional services?
those are items over and above what is covered by the economic development programs.
Yes. So this would be,
Prosecutor? Like-
yeah, if I need, if we were just slammed, let's say with the outlet mall TIF and a couple other projects, it would let me hire, a temporary prosecutor, or if we needed to, if we got some annexation requests that were complicated, we could hire out annexation, somebody to handle something like that. Just a couple of examples.
So a lot of it just, all of it depends on his workload, but I just assumed some of that was economic. If it was, it wouldn't even be in his budget.
No, when I talked about that tip proposal and the tip expense, the in and out, those were those line items, like the Spikerman's,
This is not.
Mr. White, those all go out, in and out, general and economic development.
Those going out,
Yeah.
professional services,
Right.
not, even though they're legal fees, they're not in the legal, in his budget.
No, it's not, it's,
Okay.
yeah.
And the other potential use would be, with the leasing fine proposal, if we need something that's specialized for airport with FAA, I'm prepared to tackle that, but if we get into, something that we really need to dive into, somebody who knows a thing or two about it, and pay somebody for some specialized counsel, that's what that's for. So I don't intend to use it, but it's there in case we need it. And that's all I have. I got a chair this year.
Cheers. Page 34 is building inspection, and then followed by that is building maintenance, and both those are gone.
All right, I'll start with building inspection, obviously. Uniform rental, looking at O&M first. That's going up because we are changing contracts, right? Seems like I thought maybe we went back on it, so I confused myself. So anyway, that's the expense on that one. Mobile devices and services, that has gone up quite a bit, as we've been discussing over the past couple of years. The building department has gone electronic, and this is to facilitate that over into our vehicles. We're going to inherit a couple of laptops, 2 laptops from the police department that will suffice for what we needed for some of their older equipment, but we will need to purchase the cradles, the routers, everything that Michael Bean told me I needed, so that we will have access out in the field. Essentially, everything that we get goes into our Bluebeam, our review system. We now store all of our plans, all of our inspections, all of our applications electronically. That will put it at the guy's fingertips out in the field. So there will no longer be a requirement for contractors or homeowners to maintain a job copy set of prints out on the job, because the guys will be able to have that at their access digitally. So that's the big expense change on that. Gas and fuel, drastically underestimated this year, but as we've been discussing again, inspections are up, traveling's up, and therefore we've got increased expense in gas and fuel.
What's the code enforcement rate around?
The code enforcement, that's the same amount as we've had this year. That is if we get into situations where people do not take care of their abatement. We had a house a couple of years ago that we went through the process to take care of it ourselves. If it's, I'm trying not to divulge any private information. If somebody has a house that, let's just say it's burnt out and they don't have the capabilities to take it down all the way, that's what that money is for, so we can go in and take care of it. Other communities have used it for, if we have people who don't mow their grass, people who don't, we can actually hire a service to go out.
And we try to collect from them?
Exactly, yes, we put a lien on the property. Fortunately, the one that we had, it was 10,000 out and 10,000 back. They had got their estate paid for it, so it works out.
Did we not have an abatement this year?
We did not have to pay for anything. Well, other than his services.
Right. We threatened to move forward with that, but they pulled the demo permit about the same time the threat got made, so.
It worked.
Good job, guys. Good job.
And then the computer software, increasing that right now, again, going back to the digital permit maintenance, we have the Bluebeam program that's $500 per person a license. We want to increase that. I would like to get another license. I guess that may have to be tweaked a little bit. So, it's not 500, it's 400. I would like to add, whenever we get a city engineer, I would like to add that, I would like to get a license for them as well. And maybe that would be charged to their account, but I just accounted for what I know we would need. That way we can, rather than physically transport plans between departments, that allows us just to make comments and shoot it right to the next guy. Or, well, and unless anybody has any questions, that's really the big stuff.
How come vehicles drop down to $900?
We don't need a new vehicle this year, I think. We're good.
Just some running boards.
Yes, we did. We are budgeting for running boards. We have some folks who aren't as limber as they once were, and I don't want to have any accidents, twisted ankles and such. And we also loan our vehicles out on occasion. Michael Ray has one of ours now to go to conferences. It just worked out this time because of our staffing challenges that we have currently in our department. One inspector is filling in for our secretary.
Nice. That's good. Yeah, great, thanks.
Any other questions for building inspection?
Yes.
Sir.
Juan, I don't need to be blunt, but I don't know the other way to say it. How can you justify a secretary when you haven't had one for a better part of the year and there's been nobody filling into that position?
I will answer that. Let me answer first, because there are two vacant positions, one being Ron Secretary, that yes is funded in here, partial because they're vacant or funded, this one might be full. However, they are in the process, like what I do anytime I have a job opening, I've asked the departments to fill out a JAQ, let's talk about the gap, what do you need and how that changed, because not only in the other position, but in Ron's, because Carrie Patterson doesn't feel that he needs that service, and Tara and her group are taking care of records and minutes. Carrie is like, no, I don't need to pay for services secretary. So now it's 100% Ron. So we are going through the process to answer that question. But I did go ahead and fund it.
We are also piling up quite a bit of paperwork right now. We're not getting everything scanned in. When we get a secretary, there's going to be a plethora of work to be done. Right, we're keeping our heads above water, and that's kind of something I've been saying for the last several months, and talking with Gina too. Lloyd fortunately has learned a lot of secretarial skills and is covering. Basically, it's just whenever we have time to do what we can, we do. Lloyd has taken the front side of receiving the permits, putting them in digitally, scanning stuff as needed. But that's not what Lloyd's job should be, nor should we be paying that much for that service. But yeah, we are able to get by, but our level of service and what we are getting completed is nowhere near what it should be or what I want for our department.
We should.
But I do have an administrative assistant that I have offered, Ron.
I do want to chime in. I do remember 2 years ago, we had a conversation about trying to archive all of his records electronically. And we stated at that point, this is about 2 years ago, we said that would be a full-time job for him to do, 40 hours a week, just trying to archive, trying to do all that data, all that information. Obviously, he cannot do that. So I think this position basically alleviates that, and that's probably going to be a full-time job for at least the next year or two, to try to get everything electronically scanned. But I mean, we had this debate, this conversation about who's going to archive, who's going to make everything electronic for all this paperwork and all these boxes of info we've had sitting for years.
So what progress have we made on that?
None.
Perfect.
I do not agree that that's not Lloyd's job to take care of files that he handles and to, whether it's to scan or to electronically. I see what the main reason that I think we need a person to answer the phone is for inspection, scheduling, and things like that, okay? There's software to do that. I'm not sure that we might even have something through Tyler Technologies already. As far as doing the backup, I would agree with that, but 3 years later, 2 years later, whatever, we've done none. So I'll leave it at that.
I'm just curious, I mean, if you've got a box of files and paperwork from 1965 that needs to be electronically archived, whose job is that to do?
Well, you find gaps in other people's jobs right now at this time. I mean, that's how the police,
Absolutely.
how long, Tim, did it take you guys to archive that room? Or rooms? I think it was over several, so slow progress, but I know that it's.
So you eat the elephant one bite at a time. Is that how you do it?
And again, Lloyd has also taken that on. When I say nothing, we haven't got it scanned in. What he did was start back at the beginning of what we have in boxes downstairs and has gone through. He's cleaning up files. He is getting rid of stuff that we don't need. I don't know how to explain it because I gave him direction. We have not scanned anything in. And I want to, a couple of things. I don't want there to be a false sense of they're just doing just fine without a secretary. You can ask anybody who's working in here right now how we are stressed to the max in the building department right now. Because as we know, we're going to do over $100 million in construction this year. We've never seen this type of influx. And our guys are running nonstop. Plus we have a lot more going on in compliance than we've ever had before. So to have a 3-person inspection review, department, clerical department, I can tell you that you're getting your money's worth right now out of the building department staff.
My
And I'll
concern
argue
is
with
why
anybody.
why wasn't there some assistance?
It was offered, and
Why wasn't it taken?
to not get into personnel issues, my hope was that we were gonna get somebody back that I just found out last week we're not getting back, so now we're moving forward.
Hindsight's 2020.
What we should have done something. And again, it was a week by week. It was each week, but well, I'm hoping to be back. Okay. Yes.
And if I can, just for clarity, I never intended to say that Lloyd's job was to take care of the backlog, okay? But I do think there needs to be a point in time where our inspectors and their paperwork with the electronic capabilities that we have, whatever they're handling from now on, should be able to easily be handled electronically by the individual inspector, okay? And so, yes, I still am waiting, in several years, waiting for the plan to get all of that backlog taken care of. Hasn't happened. We'll move on. That's all I have.
They are still in flat files, they're available. I can get to any of them within 10 minutes, so it hasn't been high on my priority list. I can move it to the top if you'd like.
That's good news.
Oh, that positive.
Well, I was just waiting on it. We're ready for page 36.
Are there any more questions? All right.
Oh, we're on 37 yet?
We have building maintenance now?
Okay.
That was building inspection, yeah, building maintenance, yeah.
Okay, for building maintenance, page 36, go through janitorial service, that's a new contract, so that's based on our current contract.
Considerably higher, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am. And far better service we're getting.
We approve it.
Yes.
I will say I'm very impressed with them.
Okay, and then, if there's nothing, or if there are any questions on operation and maintenance, please let me know. Otherwise, I will skip right on to the capital projects.
John, can you just, this service, so this kind of simple, what's the professional service?
Professional service is brand new this year. Mike, you're gonna have to help me with the name, cartograph.
What is it?
Open go now.
Open
Open
go.
go. It's,
That's
you're right, it's a number that was given to.
That's the second phase. So phase one is what we have started over at Public Works, which is getting all three of those departments, transportation, water, sewer, onto Cartograph.
Explain what cartograph
That
is.
software?
Cartograph is a work order software that integrates GIS and all kinds of other options into it. It was approved by the board earlier this year. In phase two, we add parks, airport, and facility management. His piece will be facility management specific to this building. So what that will do for him is once we map it all out, he'll be able to drill down on any specific piece of equipment in this building, all the air handlers, whatever, and he'll be able to tell when the last time it was maintenance, when the last time it was replaced, anytime any work was done on it. It also provides his department with the ability for his maintenance person to get on the same work order system that everybody else is on citywide.
Is this a reoccurring,
Yes.
every year?
Now, year one includes all the installations, so it's not, the reoccurring years will not be $10,800. Is that what it was? Yeah. It'll go down significantly once you get past the initial training and installation phase.
But we have a phase three that's gonna put some more of it, so some of the other departments on it, or is this phase two gonna put everybody on it that's gonna be on it?
Phase two will put everybody on that's going to be on it. The only outside of Public Works, the only other departments that are going on it are parks, airport, and facility management. Facility management will be utilized by all departments that have facilities, obviously, but Ron is a part of that.
So on the capital expenditures, there are several carryovers. We put some of these in as carryovers. Maybe they will be taken care of this year. The boardroom table replacements, I have looked, we have tried in the time that we've had to figure out a way to reconfigure this to be able to fit more people or fit the same amount with more space. And this wall here kind of prevents us from doing that unless we take on some pretty major expense in moving that and redoing the flooring and such. But right now, we'll just keep looking and hopefully somebody.
Our management team doesn't sit around the tables anymore. I don't mean that as a physical thing. I just mean as a numbers thing. Not a physical thing.
Around the tables in the conference room.
Here. So if we have everybody here, some of them have to sit out here. And so I tasked Ron, like, we find some skinny, anyway, it's skinny tables again, it's not
Yeah, even if we take them this way, yeah, you're still, as far as putting side by side by side.
I was actually thinking about that last meeting. We have one more person that is. And just for clarity, that seats 8. How many department managers do we have if we were full house?
we really would like to fit 12 up there because sometimes Dave or something, that, I think is that kind of what we.
We do have a couple more chairs behind the dais if you all decided to ever move. Carrie Bell would love to sit up there, I'm sure.
Wait a minute, I thought you were gonna give me a chair down here.
Do we extend the table or do we extend the table?
sectional piece or something. We'll get longer tables, yeah, as long as we can still move through there. Just- Stuff like.
Anyway.
Happy to see it.
Yeah.
Most of the items are carryover items other than $22,000. Backflow preventer, when that was inspected this year and certified, we were advised to budget to replace that. That is the original backflow preventer from the installation in the 90s. It's showing some degradation, it's outdated, parts are not available, etc. Same way with the alarm panel upgrade, that's our fire alarm system. We have been maintaining that alarm system. It's been doing fine, but we are getting to where our systems are outdated. So these are the bids that I received from those companies that maintain them. The parking lot seal and stripe would be for the rear parking lot. Going off the advice of those who know parking lots better than me, it's time for it to be sealed. Otherwise, the remainder are carryover. I've had to add, we had bidding issues this year, not receiving bids coming in crazy high for small projects. So, and the only one I didn't get to that I didn't try, and I asked Gina to carry over, was the retaining wall replacement around the sign out on the corner, because I didn't want to get in the way or have contractors competing over that new exit that we have over there. The Veterans Memorial was at Mike's request, put that back in. That's all I have. Is there a question?
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
The backflow, is that from just time or is it about the break? If that pops into the back.
Yeah, oh, it would be better. No, it'll be fine until it passed the inspection. He didn't say that it's just gonna explode or crack or anything, but there is grooving, there is in the system itself, or in the backflow preventer itself. And he said, yeah, the parts for that thing are old.
Yeah, it's bad.
So is the back parking lot, that's not what we installed this year?
No, sir. That's just the police ambulance where they all park back here.
Okay, all right. And then I'll just say this, as far as the Veterans Memorial, I think we should do the Veterans Memorial, but I don't think it should come out of CIT. It wasn't budgeted last year out of CIT, and I don't think it should come out of CIT.
You want it to come out of general fund, is that correct?
Yes.
We had it out of CIT last year, right?
No,
Or this year?
just this year.
In 2024 is the only place it's in. It wasn't in CIT, it's a carryover, but it wasn't funded by CIT last year.
Yeah.
But it is being funded in CIT in 24. I think I said that right. Is that correct?
It is a carryover project, but last year it was not subsidized with CIT.
What was the purpose of swapping?
Well, sometimes, balance out general fund to get some other things, if it's important to the board, want to do it, it fit in the realm of definition for CIT subsidy, but it's at the board's discretion. If you don't subsidize it to get balance, general fund to balance, you will either change or I will either need to change, use revenues, or 152,000 of something else has to cut, and that's the direction I will just take on the board.
Currently, it's scheduled to go out back out to bid either in late November or early December.
So I heard Richard and I were talking about this. Is it possible they're not going to put it here? For a room that they're going to put up moving it like this?
That's the talk, we've not officially heard any word, but that is the conversation.
My conversations with Bill Morris were that they had approached the city of Lake Ozark about putting it there, but they would prefer to put it here. They feel like it'll be safer here. And they are waiting. They are prepared to move it to Lake Ozark, depending on what happens with the bidding and the city's willingness to move forward with the project. Project has suffered a little bit over the summer. As you know, we tried to bid it out, and the bid we got was ridiculous. And even since then, we had some electrical installation services that were going to be donated by one of the Elks Lodge members. And unfortunately, that member has fallen ill and
is no longer going to be able to do that. And so I don't know exactly what that's going to mean for the bid, but until I'm directed elsewhere, I'm moving forward.
It's a shame it's been stagnant because they've had those stat sheets for several years. They're at the lodge waiting, yeah. But we've had a lot of negotiation that's gone on too.
Yeah.
Well, the problem was with, at the very beginning in my memory is that when it was brought to us, even by the Elks, they were anticipating 50 to 75,000 for the whole thing.
Really? Yeah.
That's what the number they threw out to us with the original time it was brought to the board, well, quite some time back. So that was the total number we thought that somebody was gonna come up with. That's doubled now, and that number has not have been good because now we're getting bids up in the 200s. So, I mean, this $50,000 to $75,000 project is now
Exploded.
Can the project not be scaled back from a smaller memorial or something else?
don't want it that way.
We've scaled it back. When we started, it was a lot of bricks, and I know Bob was involved in that. And once we looked at that, we scaled that way back. The problem is the terrain out there and the infrastructure that has to be put in. So whether you put 5,000 bricks in there or whether you put 2,000 bricks in there, you still have to deal with all the infrastructure in that circle. And so scaling it back isn't going to change some of the work that needs to be done in that area. It's, I guess I should say, isn't going to change it enough for it to make a $75,000 difference.
Okay.
I totally understand where the board's coming from on this. Just tell me what you want to do and I'll do it. But the reality is that this number is tentative.
I mean, obviously, as a veteran, I really like to see it happen, but not if it's a lottery ticket. So,
You can
see
allocate
the plan?
money, sorry, I just say allocate money to whether it happens or not, if it's not made. If it doesn't happen, it still has to be approved by the board.
You can continue to get the bids that we have the answer, and at the same time, you're parallel having conversations with the Elks, and then when it gets to, okay, now we know exactly what's cost, we know exactly what's gonna happen, and they tell us at that point, yes or no.
But at least budget for it this time.
So have you seen the plans for it?
I have.
Okay. It's a pretty nice memorial.
It is.
It's very
kind of my
nice.
thing.
And, and I will just say that something like a memorial that you would expect to be there for an extremely long period of time isn't done well and cheap easily, okay? In talking with one of the members on the committee is that there is definitely a preference to do it here in Osage Beach. They like the idea that it's right out here in front where the police come through and so forth from a security standpoint, as far as vandalism and things like that. I don't think anybody ever imagined that it would get as complex and as expensive as this. And I know that Mr. Morris is probably very frustrated because he expected this to go very, very fast. But, a memorial like to this extent, if you will, is something that, takes a while. And yeah, you can scale it back. There's a bunch of flagpoles. Man, those things, you don't know how much, some of it costs a lot more than you might think is how much a flagpole costs, okay? There's several of them. They're like 6 or 8 or
one for each military service.
Right. So I'm not saying that by no means will it reduce it by $75,000. But yeah, you could value engineer it, but then it's not going to look near as nice as what's in the drawings right now that everybody really likes. So I just don't think it should be CIT. Honestly, we haven't even got through. Well, maybe we got through it. I've heard some things already tonight that it'd be nice to have. We might need them. Okay? It's still, I think, very possible to fund it through the general fund itself without doing CIT. Yep.
Any other questions on building maintenance? Jump over to page 42, page 40, sorry. HR, I know we talked about overall personnel, but for Mike Ray, I'll hit a couple highlights, and he kind of went over that in that handout he actually had. He had some explanation on some of his line items, which are here. Medical vaccination, he explained that was kind of a jump. Employee programs and developments, although that is not any different from last year's budget. We were a little less, but he did note that in 2024, the focus will be on leadership development and recognition programs. Other than that, his O&M is not extremely different. Let's see. The one job classification, I guess I'll jump back up, job classification compensation plan, we budgeted this year 5,000. We decided we needed to do the full compensation plan, but there's a savings in other line items, so overall it's not going to be, I just haven't done those transfers. But next year we will go back to applying by ordinance. It says that every 4 to 5 years, I think, that we do a full compensation plan, and we did that every other year. It's 20 to 25%. So it's going back down to 5,000 to do the as ordinance 25% of jobs that get evaluated. And that, and he's got a chair, 2 chairs.
Gina, Michael had mentioned development classes for leaders, for supervisors and managers, departments, et cetera. I don't see it in here.
Well, that is under employee programs and developments, a combination of that, and sometimes in the individual departments' budgets, there will be a little bit in there, but the bulk of it there. And he's still reviewing. I know ICMA, which is International City and County Manager Association, they actually have programs too for different levels of supervisors. So, you know, he's still looking on what that looks like, because we've done a few things over the years. Last year, we kind of got back off track. So he's putting his thoughts and his recommendations in, but that's where most of that funding.
I just want to make sure there's money here, because I fully support what he's doing with that.
Yeah.
So if I could tag on that, just if we're doing that, I assume that's an additional cost. So is there things that we're not doing without being like every dollar specific here?
Well, employee program, yeah,
it didn't feel like it was there.
Yeah, it kind of fluctuates. There's different things. Like this year, we're not going to quite spend the 25, but if you notice, there was other years that we didn't spend, you know, without going in and look at the count exactly what the in and out, but I know that fluctuates based on employees and programs. So I am not concerned that he can get something new and revived and still stay within that 25.
Okay. What, I have 2 line item questions. What professional services was that $40,000?
Professional services, it's 2,500. Where are you looking?
Professional services.
$2,500.
Oh, those are just some HR. Okay.
Page 40.
What page are you on?
Your page doesn't look like my page.
There we go.
I was like, I don't see a 40,000. How did I miss that?
My bad, sorry.
Okay, well, we'll move on to overhead, because I think page 42 is where that 40 is. It's my. So overhead is kind of like a non-departmental fund. It's a department but no managers. This is kind of where we hit anything overhead. All your property and liability, all your postage, everything that's tied to citywide, which some of these items then is accounted for in the administrative reimbursement with the other enterprise funds. So a couple new things. Let's see. Maintenance and support. Okay, that's a little bit going out there. Okay, so the 40,000 professional services, that is twofold. No, that's the one. So for the last several years, this is really for my benefit, well, for the citywide benefit. For the last several years, I have wanted to also do kind of like what Public Works is doing, but on the budget planning and analysis idea. So budget software is what I call it. The budget software would bring everything live, centralized source, live community engagement, live knowledge of what's incoming and outgoing on your dollars. Right now, this process is very antiquated. What I do, I've been perfecting it for 15 years, but we have been ready for a few years now to actually integrate with our accounting software and our finance software with budget software, which not only produces a live interactive budget, but also then tracks and takes care of all the things that's done manually between myself and accounting and my administrative assistant. So 40,000, I have not put out an RFP. Several years ago I looked, it wasn't quite that much, but I'm sure everything's gone up. In fact, I was very excited to see when Public Works and the rest of the city landed on something now owned by OpenGov, because OpenGov is one of probably the top 5 budgeting, planning, and analyst software. So like to have it. I think it could be done. I need about 9-10 months to plan this whole from start to finish. And so either I gotta decide to do it now for the next budget or next January, I'm still talking about it. Because there's a specific time of year that this would have to involve several departments, so.
It is essentially software.
Software program, online, live.
Again, is that reoccurring?
Well, I am sure there might be some maintenance and support, but I do not know the details. This is just actually buying the source and getting online like we do, but just like Tyler Tech and all these others, I'm sure there's some small maintenance and support piece to keep it active. Is that $1,000 a year or 5,000? I don't know yet. And I will know more once I get into the RFP process.
Good, thanks. Gina, this is kind of a finding point. Contingencies are usually based on a specific number, projected dollar amount going to be spent.
Say that again?
A contingency number is usually 10% of operating budget, and projected number, et cetera.
I just said.
Why 10,000?
Well, okay, so I will tell you the history of why 10,000. My predecessor always got 75,000 or 50,000. And then time got rough and money got tight. And she also was like, listen, there needs to be something so I have some leeway to do something if there's some little. And so the board ended up only giving her 10, and the board's never upped that since then. So as you can see, we used it in 2020, way more than the 10, but obviously that was through budget amendment process or whatever, and I couldn't even tell you about looking what it ended up being used for or transferred out of. But it's just a placehold, and it got knocked down to 10,000 before I was in this position. So.
Usually it's a percentage of a number, like here's the projected budget, here's 10% above and beyond that. I'm just curious whether.
Was it 2020 COVID?
Well, 2020 was COVID, so I'm sure there was something like but specific why use more, but yeah.
Just curious.
Yeah, it's.
Where the number came from.
Can I point out something real quick? Boy, look at the budget for the phone system next year.
Okay, Mike.
That's great if it works.
Yeah.
So. They're very pretty.
I don't know.
They're very pretty.
They're very pretty, and I'm still trying to figure out some of the features. But that's like with anything new, as long as I can answer it better. And then, any other questions on overhead? Planning department's 47. Pretty sure Harry didn't have much in his way, other than, well, we talked about overall personnel, but.
I have a question on planning.
What page is it? 47.
47.
Okay, my question is, I'm assuming that, well, the question I have on this is not what I thought I had. The question I have on this is the health insurance.
On planning,
Right, why is it way down compared to previous?
well, he was sharing a half a person with Ron, and in 2024, Carrie is just not going to share that.
Oh,
So his
forgot.
personnel changed.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. We didn't kick anybody out of the program.
Where did we put the GIS person?
That is moving in engineering, which I know we'll talk about, but we've made the engineer and the
That's where
GIS person is
okay,
going to
that's
go.
where I got my question. I thought the GIS person would go to planning, but when we get to that, I have.
It'll go in engineering.
That's why I'm-
And that's on Mondays.
Yeah.
IT, page 51.
Thank you, Gina. All right. First, training and conferences went up a little bit. You guys ended up deciding that we need an additional person. The government summit ×2 that we go to every year. Normal security conference, and Mike recommended that I attend NML for the first time next year. So that's where that increase is. Was fortunate enough this year to get some uniforms, moving servers and all that. I've had some great shirts. The one that I have on is part of that, so it would be for me and my personnel, if approved. The big one here, maintenance and support. So the big jump in maintenance and support, myself and Mike, primarily me, I went to / and asked them to review our insurance requirements and just the way our security standards are and where we're lacking and what we need. And I asked them to come up with a comprehensive breakdown of what they feel would best set the city up for our cybersecurity policy and they provided us kind of a breakdown, which I don't believe you guys have, but I'll be happy to email it. It covers a wide variety of things. It goes over our .gov domain. They refer to it as our one source security service. We do some of it already with the penetration testing and scanning, but it goes much deeper than that. It'll be a full review of all our policies and procedures, the continuance of our email phishing and security training, dark web monitoring where they go out and search for specific names, email addresses, things that are being sold out on the dark web. Kind of puts us ahead of the game where instead of being reactive, we become proactive. The email protection that we currently have, but those are some of the big key points on that. And that's the majority of the cost increase on the maintenance and support line item. Again, I'll be happy to send that.
Mike, while you're there, maintenance supports, not just the increase, but what does all that cover? Is it just maintenance? Other than the insurance, what all does that cover?
It's a wide variety. It's all of our in-code maintenance and support, that whole program, everything from all of the Juniper and vSphere licensing that we do with all of our servers, all the way down to Civic Clerk, NeoGov. It's a wide variety. Restream, which we use like every piece of software, the yearly maintenance moving forward comes out of my maintenance and support. So it's a wide variety of software.
And this is one of those line items that I ensured that the enterprise funds pays general fund back, because it's like citywide support services for all our software and technology. Unless they're department specific, then they're in the departments. But otherwise, Michael Dean manages every time we turn our computer, every program, there's some kind of maintenance.
Exactly. And then all of our firewall, like just basically the operation of the firewall, we have to pay a Barracuda monthly that we pay out over the years. Just basically everything that kind of keeps us going from the software side all falls under that. But the big jump, I mean, obviously from the companies raising, anywhere between 8 to 10% is the big piece that I just from forward slash. That is correct.
So the big jump is all those forward slash.
About 85% of it is that forward slash, all based around security. I mean, it has some of the things that we're currently doing, and we're kind of onesie and twosie and picking what we want. Once we group them all together, instead of having them individually, we will save money. But that is their recommendation for where we need to be to put us in the best situation possible from a security standpoint.
For clarification, what we are doing is required by our cybersecurity insurance. So it wouldn't matter whether we use / or somebody else. If you want to comply with your cybersecurity insurance policy, which right now we are not in compliance of it, then we have to make these upgrades in order to make our system more secure. Or we can choose to drop the cybersecurity policy. That's always an option, but it's not something that would be recommended.
And the way I've been told, or the way I understand it right now, if you're not 100% compliant, we're at 50% of our policy. So right now, or where we were before the new changes happened, we were at around 90%, which was the two-factor authentication was kind of that last piece. Well, obviously things have changed then, but we're still sitting at 50% because that was the last piece we had to finish. And that will be a moving target moving forward. So like Mike said, it's a decision I think we'll have to make year to year on how reasonable or how feasible it is.
So if somebody hacked into our system and said, we're gonna hold you for ransom for $10 million, right now we're covered for $5 million of that.
50%, that is correct. And then,
unless we have it so secure that it doesn't matter that they hold our data ransom, because we have it all backed up and we leave that data.
well, and that's what you guys, pay my salary for, is to make sure that we, in the worst case scenario, if that comes to it, we're not going to pay ransom. We just burn it down and start over because we have what we need in place. And in years to come, we'll bring other things that will put us even further ahead, and which obviously costs money, but we're in a very good place right now if that situation ever occurred. So
I'm just going to jump on. This is not directed you, Michael, but from a board standpoint, I think I'm speaking on behalf of the board because none of us are technology wizards. But it's alarming that of all departments, IT has the greatest increase for 2024 from this year, and the fact that the budget has doubled in 4 years. We don't know technology, none of us are experts at it. It's just a general comment that's alarming, that obviously our systems were that far behind, were that inadequate, that once again, we have doubled that budget in 4 years to get up to par.
Well, we have added a lot of technology. We're going more online, we're devices. So we have also grown internally, which also obviously need that support. Yeah, the cost of everything goes up, but I also think that that is a direct contributor of how internally our operations are more and more technically.
Well, I read it that obviously we were behind the eight ball.
Well, we
were
have,
close to where we should
we
have been.
have been in different areas over the past several years, but I will say, and I credit Michael Dean to this, is, you know, the last 3 and 4, we have made strides we should have been keeping up with, and we've, even in the last 5 years, we've come a long way. So we are, you know, I can remember when we didn't have Office 365, and everybody, you know, so yeah, we are staying.
And there was times when I first got here, we were running backups, wheeling a server with a card, plugging it into the network like a computer and letting it run for a week just to get our backups, just to turn around and do it again a week later and just wheel it down with, you know, which is not what you want for disaster recovery, because God forbid the building ever burns, you lose everything. So true disaster recovery is, you know, moving it off site and out of it. So there's a lot.
Which is what we have.
I would say that as a general comment, that it's just alarming.
Well, the one thing I want
be
to,
that far behind.
Bobby, one thing I want to want is that we're not far behind. This is extra stuff that is being put on us by the insurance policy. Every city nationwide is gonna, if they're gonna comply with their cybersecurity policy, they're gonna have to add the same, I guess, it's $89,400 in order to comply with that year over year. Cybersecurity is becoming a very, very big deal. And it is the board's choice whether we want to do that. But again, I don't think Michael or Gina or I would ever recommend we not do it.
I don't think I'm against it. I just think it's just alarming to look at the numbers.
Well, I would like to address that and kind of back it up, because that's half of what I did in the military. And it's not static, it's fluid. Bad guys are always creating. So it's a fluid defense system, and it gets more and more expensive because the bad guys are doing more and more expensive stuff.
I got a phishing email yesterday.
Oh, that whitelisted.
Well, yeah,
That same
whitelisted, but it was from one of our developers, and one of their emails got hacked, and then they sent us, so it came from a good domain, it wasn't a fake, but it was, one of them got hacked, and they sent phishing emails to a bunch of us.
Well, and built into a lot of this without getting too much, and of course, there's a lot of things you want to put out there and some things you don't, just because, you know, it's all need to know type stuff. But like a part of this package, what we have right now is we have lower level antivirus that will recognize and hopefully block it. Built into this is the smart sector where if it finds something, it'll pull the computer off the domain and keep it from spreading. So there's these little built-in safeguards that as technology changes, you know, can maybe keep us from losing everything. Maybe we lose a PC, God forbid that ever happens. So again, there's a lot of that's obviously very, it goes very in depth with what we're trying to do from a security standpoint.
So who provides the insurance? Who do we purchase that insurance from?
We just recently had to switch because it was provided in our package and everybody was dumping cyber policy, so we had to go out somewhere separate. And I don't remember the name now, but we just recently switched because we did get it through our NPR bundle. Well, a lot of all pools and bundles were like, no, this is something more specialized, go to your own. So we did recently have to, maybe last year.
So it's not Forward/Slash provider?
No, it's not. It's an insurance company.
Okay.
I have one other question. So obviously, companies like Equifax or something like that, they get targeted, ransom, all that. Do we have a history of cities in Missouri getting ransom?
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
And the mail have whole classes on it. I mean, we have, in fact, we got ransom, what was that, 6 years? It was back then when 4 people were hearing about it, wasn't much. And
I forget the name of the city just, 2 months ago, right down the road. Who was that? Right outside of Iberia. It's just, one of them was hit. I was reading about it. And then obviously hear about the one in Vegas where the MGM Grand or whatever it was, you know, a lot bigger target. But yes, we have had local municipalities hit in the last 6 months.
And, when we were at MML, one of those classes was on that, and I feel bad for these cities that did that, and they had to choose to pay ransom in Bitcoin and just hope they were nice enough to get their stuff back because they didn't have the things in place.
And that's the risk, you pay and you may not give it back.
Michael, the imaging cameras, I thought we had installed some of those already this year, these more.
Yes, ma'am, we did. We actually expanded out to the parks and we can find that specific line item that you're looking at is the older cameras on the back side of the building in the parking lot. So trying to keep maintain a certain level. They're real grainy in 911. They can't make out license plates. So we just went and did a full review of the system after the big project that you guys approved. And I'm not sure if you guys have seen it, but if you haven't, it'd be great if you stop by 911 and look at what you guys approved, because they see fine Grandways and Parks is in a much better place than it's ever been. But yeah, specifically, those are the cameras on the back side of the building, pointing at the parking lot.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mike, this is my last question. I don't know, did you get down to computer equipment?
I have not. I'm getting ready to get into it now. All right, so over to page 52. As you can see, computer equipment, we are at the point now where in 2023, we are out of warranty on all of our PCs, all of our laptops, all of our desktops, and all of our Precisions. Before I came here at the conservation and in the military, we always had a standard 3 to 4 year turnover. The days of, obviously, if you can open a computer and do a quick fix, that's great. But generally now warranty covers all that. And obviously due to lack of personnel, the warranty's huge where if I have an issue, if I can re-image it and send it out, that's my fix. If not, send it back to Dell, they send me a new one. So we're at a point now where all of the warranty on our machines is done. So as you can see, that is the replacement for the entire city from a PC standpoint. And then the docking stations, the Precision specifically used to be in engineering. Precisions are now ran in 911 just due to the different programs that they run in there. Also in there to go back to the quad imaging cameras, that's the cameras on the back of the building, like I said. The black and white printer is for Tara's area. Court is what we did. Is that the court black and white?
I just put printer replacements in their budget on 52,
okay.
So that might be more than one, or several.
I think it's 2.
Yeah, and then the last one is Chief ended up breaking his color printer the day we submitted the budget, so we scrambled back to try to get him another new one. Any questions on that specific line?
Yes. What's the life expectancy of a laptop these days? 3 years?
3 to 4, 5's pushing it. You can pay for 5 years of warranty, but generally by the time you pay for the 5th, you're really paying way more. So it's best to keep that cycle fresh. But 3 to 4 years is what we would love to get out.
And total office furniture is going.
So the office furniture is the new personnel. We had a lot of office equipment in the office next to me, and Public Works has had their way, and there's just one desk sitting right in the middle.
Gavin, somebody,
Yeah.
Just threw me under the bus.
You're not in your office.
We recycle and reuse offices and chairs and everything, but we've come to a point now that we've moved around and there's not a lot of spare pieces anymore.
Thanks.
A little upgrade?
So I have one other question. I don't know if this is the right time. Go ahead, throw it out there. I am in support of the new position, but could you kind of just outline what they're doing? What's their job?
So just from an overview, I'm just to the point now where I take a lot of pride in never asking for help and doing as much as I can, but I am ran down to the point where I've come to the realization that I need help. So they would be basically doing everything I do as a working manager. Recently just did a huge upgrade for the police department, and I was watching the meeting the other day, and I appreciate the support that I heard. Honestly, police could have their own IT, just for as much technology that they have in cars, ambulances. The new person would be learning all of those systems, doing all the server maintenance, all the updates, everything that we do there, firewalls, just basically everything that I do on a day-to-day basis.
So it's a lady.
Yes, and allow me to hopefully focus more on the managerial side, because there are times that I feel that, Michael, I haven't been able to get a hold of you for a day and a half. Well, there is a priority structure, and 911 is my priority. You know, when somebody calls, I have to make sure they're good. And I'm sorry, Tara, but maybe her printer or whatever, not that anybody's more important or not, but sometimes, and obviously / on the other side, but certain things that need to be handled on site, they're just unable to do. If they can't make remote contact with that piece of equipment, essentially there's not much they can do but forward the ticket to myself. And then along with that, I've been here 5.5 years now. I can't tell you how many times I've tried to take vacation, and Gina specifically told me, don't answer your phone. But in times, somebody brought up the Christmas, or actually it was my birthday, December 23rd, when we had the big snowstorm, and 911 went down. I was fortunate enough to go up and see family from all over the Midwest, and about 3 hours I spent with them. Drove to Hannibal to get connection. I had to turn around and drive right back down here to assist. And again, that type of stuff's going to happen. But boy, to have somebody on site that could possibly be able to relieve me a week or two out of the year, they would be appreciative. So yeah, again, just a mini-me. I don't see them being pigeonholed into just doing one thing or the other. My hope would be that if I'm sick or God forbid something ever happened to me, you guys wouldn't be up creek without having somebody on site.
This reminds me of a conversation we had just a couple months ago, which I brought up about cross-training, about the fact that when we've got one-person departments like IT, like Gary Patterson, like Tara, people that basically care. I mean, if God forbid something were to happen to them, who's stepping in and fill that role?
Yeah.
They break their leg, they're out for 2 weeks, they're surgery out for a month. Who's going to fill in that gap? Who's going to take over the IT position?
April can back.
Got a part-timer.
Yes.
But I'm saying, who's going to fill in that position? Who's trained enough in this
And you know, as far as our department,
office or in this building to take over IT?
I'm a big proponent of cross-training myself, but not for that.
well,
Cybersecurity, so.
when you talk about our departments, there are certain department managers that are hit with darts all the time, every time, all day long, and IT is just naturally one of those departments, and we have grown. It's ready to have the insight, and we had an IT department of 3 or 4 one time years ago, and then we outsourced some, which I think there is definitely a place for that. This will not replace that, but having 2 on site, and I agree with Michael being, police can just have their own, and that's their specialty.
I mean, it's a bigger discussion, which I brought up before, like when something happens to Cole, he's out for a month. I'm going to replace that. Who's stepping in? Who's going to get
Attorneys all over the place.
You know, but think about it. IT's out for a month. Cole's out for a month. Who's stepping in to fill that role? It's a discussion we had about cross-training and the hierarchy of if this person's gone, this is the replacement, or this person fills in. And something that we should have had on the department update list because it was something we discussed, but we never went any further than that one conversation. But it's something that concerns me because so many of our positions here are one-man operations.
We need to step up the plate and pay for it.
And I will say / would be happy to send a body down here to help out, but it's going to cost significantly more. And I don't want to discount what we have for / because their help desk and what they provide, but it's much more than just a help desk. There's services that they provide like remote desktop, like all these softwares that I utilize where if Ty calls me, at least he fine. But used to, I'd have to drive all the way out there and put hands on. Built into that contract is the resources, the ticketing system that they use, I have access to. Things that had cost us, you know, that we use free versions that weren't secure to try to save money. A part of what / provides is almost that structure of the IT department that we're not paying for. The remote desktop services, like I said, the ticketing software. There's a lot more than that, the monitoring software. Where back in the day, 5 years ago, how do we know a server went down? Somebody was cursing that they couldn't get to whatever, or we going, now we have software that alerts us, sends emails. That's also a part of what we're getting from / I just wanted to put that out there that what the help desk contract provides is much more than just the help desk. But from a body standpoint, I truly believe the city would be in a much better position if we had one additional body.
So I'd just like to tag on to that conversation. Additional body or not, what it's starting to sound like is we're at a place where we're going to have to start deciding whether we should have IT in-house or out of the house. Took it out. If I could finish, okay?
Sorry.
We were told when we took it out that it would be much cheaper, okay? We would save money. I think we did for a little bit, but I don't think we're there anymore. okay? And so when you were looking at forward slash, well, I'm not sure the exact number we give them the forward slash, but it looks like we're paying them $300,000 to $380,000 a year. Is that in line ballpark?
No, that maintenance and support line item of 300 something is not just forward slash.
Okay, so
Some of that's in
how
there.
much approximately would you say, Swag, would you say we'll give it forward
For
slash?
forward slash, what would you, I mean, 100.
Yeah, if you look at the line below the 382,500,
Professional services.
that is what we pay for our contract, $100,000 a year. There are some side things that we have done with forward slash outside of that contract that provide us with some additional softwares, but I would say about 60% of that 382,500 is for in-code support.
It's for all my.
In-code support, our financial software support for the hub of all that we do from an accounting standpoint and from a financial reporting standpoint. That's what half, maybe a little over half of what you see there. That's what that is. The rest of it is, as Michael said, it is support for all of our firewalls. It's support for all the switches that we have. It's support
$40,000 in Office 365, email, maintenance, that's all built into that.
Yeah.
So before we would go guessing on what this is, just like we did the engineering service, we can take an analysis of what we spend and what kind of personnel expertise that would replace if we would replace that with the contract services. And we can put that together and get that back to you. What Mike will be on Michael, I don't know if you weren't here the other night, I didn't give you a copy, but I kind of did a synopsis of that job description. It's not necessarily the need for that position isn't right now replacing anything we're already paying for forward slash. So another personnel might, but we can do that analysis just like we did for.
And I'm not
I
necessarily.
don't want to guess at it without it.
And I'm not necessarily looking for that analysis like between now and the end of budget or before we go to board with budget. It's just that in my mind, any time that we are using a consistent service day in and day out, then we are much better off having that service in-house. Okay? Some of you have heard, if you haven't heard, there's at least a 30% markup on taking that out of the house. All right. And so, it's something I would hope that by next year we look at it before budget or any budget comes up, that we look at closely, because I think we're creeping closer to that every day.
And I will say forward slash's contract is up next year. So putting that out there, that this is something that we will be reevaluating very, very soon.
I would just want to tag on and say, I believe there's certain things that we do in-house and there's certain things that we need to do out-house. And I think that there's certain, when we look at these things, we need to evaluate it. And I tend to disagree with all of Ross. I believe there are certain things that we should outsource. And that's what we need to evaluate. There's some things that we outsource, and I think it's better. We're getting expertise from, in this specific situation, we're getting expertise that if we hire 2 or 3 people, and we'd probably only be able to hire one more person for what we spend for forward slash, maybe 2 at the most, you're not going to get all that expertise that you have available there with forward slash. That's in this specific one. I'm not saying that I believe we need to outsource everything, because the next thing come along that we outsource, I may just the opposite, be talking against it. But I believe there are things that we need to evaluate. There are some things we need to outsource, there's things we don't. In this situation, I support outsourcing this service for them.
Yeah, I'd like to jump on tags and that, just from the genetics lab I worked at, we had 3 IT people, full-time, maybe 80 employees, and we were still outsourcing a lot of stuff. I'm just thinking in the modern world, you have to have people inside that can help with printers, help with laptops, do the stuff that's hands-on, but you need specialized stuff outsourced. I think we have to defer to a little bit, have a good game plan. And do you feel we're getting what we should out of it?
I do. I think there was some, in the first couple of years, figuring it all, integrating, getting out. We were with a company called Infinitech and kind of just to be honest, not to throw anybody under the bus, but when I first got here, there was no records and trying to figure out what's what. And I mean, we kind of are unraveling that ball of mess and now trying to properly document and get all that. So there was some learning, some rough parts in there, but I believe there is a benefit there. And I'll say, even my time in the military, 10 years and at the conservation, the old in-house IT, that's a thing of the past. When I first joined, there was 75 of us in IT. I mean, that's unheard of. Now it's less do more, but then you outsource for specific. I mean, that's the conservation does that today. 6 years ago when I was there, you obviously have your core group of people, but there are always circumstances that come up. You're never going to have enough jack of all trades to do everything that IT covers because it's such a wide variety of, touches everything these days. So I think the way we're set up right now is very in line with the way most entities do it.
Good deal.
And that's all I have. If anybody has any other questions, sorry I went a little long.
Page 55.
5-minute break.
Oh, what?
It's a 5-minute break.
Right.
That's what I read.
It could be 5 or 10.
Oh.
Sorry.
Sorry, be back.
Sorry, Mr.
Somebody
Mayor.
needs to buy a break.
You weren't here the last time.
Yeah, are you needing a break?
Yes, please.
Yeah, sure. 5 minutes? Sure. Why don't we start at 7:15? Sound good? That's 7:10.
Oh, you got.
Golly.
As far as your concern.
All right, we're back in order.
Different story.
Before we turn to page 55, one quick question. We moved tonight's meeting up to 5:30. Is there interest to do Mondays at 5:30? If so, we need to modify the agenda, so.
Or earlier, but I'm not sure.
Or, yeah. Well, you know mine, we do it.
Is there
3 o'clock.
anybody opposed to 5:30? Really?
I'm Columbia again on Monday. I got lucky today, I got out at 3:15.
Okay.
So I made it through this one, I just can't guarantee time on Monday.
Well,
Well,
But it's fine, you guys go ahead and do it, I'll get here when I get here.
no, I mean, if you cannot be here until 6, we'll keep it at 6. I mean,
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure, that's just it, but go ahead and schedule at 5:30 for the rest of the group, that's fine.
That'll motivate him to get here.
I was supposed to be in Columbia till 5.
Is Kelly gonna be here?
Just like today.
I think so. She didn't, it was just these two she was missing.
5:30 problem for her?
Well, she doesn't work the thing, I don't know. I can say, I don't know.
So what time are we gonna do it?
Well, you tell me so we can amend the agenda.
Do
Or not
5:30.
amend the agenda.
anybody else have a problem?
Get it when I get here.
All right.
Okay.
5:30.
All right, thank you. All right, page 55, thank you. So I'll hit some highlights. TIF proposal expense, just for clarity, that's an even 70, that's that in and out. Those are our funding agreements. It's the expense side when we have active funding agreements, the revenue side is the general fund. Professional services, so that includes 2 new things. One is a placeholder for potentially a soccer/sports facility feasibility study that we have discussed. The other less than 12,000 is I really would like to do a formal community and start doing this annually community survey, resident type survey. A lot of bigger cities, if you go on there, they do something that they track every year and different services and different values. And I don't have all the details, but I just kind of briefly or did an informal proposal to what other communities use, like Columbia and some of your bigger cities that do this. And I think for less than 12,000, depending on what options every year. And so that is something new that I would like to place hold to research and get something done. A couple of different community groups that I talked to, the best time, really, we're going into the best time to start that as far as people's time and stuff. So that's where the uptick in the professional services comes from. Really, about 14% increase for community promotion events. As you know, we're slowly growing our events that pretty much are all managed under parks, along with a lot of volunteers. Our staff is very, very helpful that they help put those on too. So that has an increase because of community events, and we'd still like to keep growing those. Component unit transfers, and I know we're going to talk about component units for like less than 30 seconds because it's just part of the budget. This is your EATs from all your active incentives, TIFs. So the EATs that are collected in the general fund through the TIFs, like Deerbergs, OB Commons, a little bit of Arrowhead. This is the transfer out to the component unit funds. So because you approve a TIF, 50% of that new sales tax, that increment, the EATs, the economic activity tax, flows out of the economic development to the component units.
So this is one of those good things that goes out of budget.
Sorry?
So this is one of those good things that goes over budget.
Well, good if you're for or against TIFs, I guess, but yes. I mean, you said you're taking those EATs out of that go to pay for those projects that we're helping to incentivize. Yes, so I guess you could say it's a good expense. But what's interesting, I just want to note a tidbit of analysis. So in our general fund sales tax, so we collect sales tax in general fund, transportation, and CIT. So over the last 4 years, over the last 4 years, we've had an average increase of about 6% of incoming. Now, this year is a little low, last year was big, but over 4 years, 6% has increased on average over sales tax in general. But out of the component units, we've seen an average of 10% increase. So the activity in those component units, in those TIF districts, incentive districts, are growing sales tax faster than the overall city. This tidbit of information. So I thought that was interesting when I was analyzing the dollars. Other than that, those are only comments I really wanted to make with, economic development. No capital this year, we got caught up on the banners and the lights, so that we'll take a break from that for a bit. So, any other questions, I'll be happy to answer.
We had an offset, or there's offset in here. Is the offset, we ended up with $44,000 over budget. Okay? Did we end up with 44,000 because of offsets?
Well, yeah,
Because I only see 31,700 of offsets out of the 44, but I guess I didn't think about the offset of the component transfer units, because that, I kept looking at that, I thought, what is, I couldn't think of what it was until you just explained it and talking.
Yeah.
So that's probably where the other offset comes.
No invoices or things we were purchasing were over budget, are just, sales tax increased in those tax districts, so therefore they transfer out to those tax districts. My gosh, that is a mouthful. Increases naturally, and then the, your funding agreements with your developers. They spent more than we thought they would spend, but that has a revenue that matches that.
But what about the $20,000 over budget on the lights?
Okay, that's a carryover that I have not corrected yet, because I am gonna bring you some budget adjustments, one that I need to by legislative legal reasons, but that was a combination of a carryover. So what we would, from 2022 that moved over to 2023 that didn't have adjustment yet, but that's one of them on the list.
So it's a budget adjustment caused by carryover?
Yeah.
We only
Majority
had,
of it
we only had
is.
6,000 budgeted in 22.
Well, 22, that's the actual, that's not the budget.
We had 25,000 budgeted for both years. When we ordered the banners in 22, they weren't going to get here until like February of 23. We had $25,000 budgeted for lights in 23 as well. So we spent in both years. We didn't spend all 50,000, but we spent both of it in the I believe the thing for us is what we got out of that was 18 new light displays, which will be integrated into the park or along the parkway this year. And nobody has seen those yet, because this will be the first time that we get to display those new light displays.
And budget adjustments.
Yeah. There are several budget adjustments that will be just to get it balanced. That it? All right, CIT. Starts on page 82 is the summary. 83, 59, I cannot see. Page
83 out of 59, sorry.
Where am I going? Page 59. I think I was looking at the 93 to look like 83. So CIT, I know that we will probably talk more about CIT maybe as far as sewer, water transfer, Monday night. I don't know how deep depth you want to go. If you want to tackle all of the CIT on all the items tonight and leave sewer later, I'll leave to your direction. Just a couple highlights. Interest, again, this is another one that counts that we have had an uptick in interest because of our new investment policy. As far as it transfers out, the component unit transfers, again, just like general fund has eats, so does the CIT and the transportation fund that goes to the component units. So that, of course, was a little different than budgeted because they've done better. And then the other transfers out of funds. So I don't know how in depth we want to talk about CIT tonight, if we wait till Monday when we talk about sewer, because that's the big piece of transfer out, or how you all want to just come back to all the capital and end of the night. So I'll leave it to your direction.
We'd rather wait till after we do the sewer.
Okay,
My thought.
It's been a long week, I agree.
Okay. Perfect, let's move on to airports. So leasing fine, 82, and then we'll move right into Grand Glaze after Ty hits his highlights.
Okay,
82 for real, sounds right.
83.
Yeah.
83 really is the, well, I'm sorry, Ty, let me do the revenue first, just because I know I tend to do more of the revenue. Grant
A lot of revenue.
A lot of revenue. Well, first and foremost, for both airports, your grant revenue is directly tied to whatever project, and all of those are 90-10. So 90-10. So for example, the particular projects that we see fine that are tied to the grants, 461,000 is all we are needing out of pocket, and we're for 4.1 million in grants. So yes, 480 or 461,000 is an out-of-pocket expense this year, but we are only having to contribute 10%. So those are tied basically to projects, and they roll over how fast the project gets done. As far as the revenue, any of the aviation and jet fuel, those are tied to the expense. So whatever average markup, so it depends on how much we sell and what keeps in inventory. So those are tied to that. Hangar rental, parking leases, tie downs. I guess that's, as far as the transfers, both airports, as I explained, for overall O&M. Tuesday night, that is a direct relationship to balancing these two enterprise funds, kind of like what general fund is to ambulance, transportation fund, because transportation dollars can be used for multimodal, so that's what airports are.
So I guess I'm trying to understand that the transfer from transportation to airport is a function of all the grants in action?
Well, a lot of times that is usually the financial piece that makes the airports out of balance, that the operation, the regular revenue doesn't cover.
Right.
This year, 461,000 is contributed directly tied to just a cash flow issue with funding our 10% of what we will be paying for those projects. However, sometimes there's operational shortfalls. And so transportation transfer to subsidize either airport a lot of times is a plug number.
So what, if I can, what has changed so much, the leasing fine especially, that it sounds like around $150,000 needs to be transferred in that we normally haven't done and aren't part of grants projects?
Well,
I assume that's a tight question, but maybe.
Sometimes it's, also the beginning balances, but.
It's easier to take out the grant stuff to try to figure out too, because I was trying to figure that out too, Richard. I was trying to figure out.
Well, I thought she just said about $400,000 was tied to grants.
$461,000 is our 10% of those one-time projects.
Right.
And so a lot of times, especially with leasing fine, that is where we normally need that subsidy from transportation to cover the capital expense. But there are operational shortfalls with cash flow every once in a while with leasing fine, just because of the timing of the grant money coming in or the timing of expenses going out, that it needs an operational subsidy. And in this case, if you just equate 603,000 of that's what dollar was needed to balance this fund, 461 can be tied directly to the grant projects. However, we also have another 117,000 of capital, computer, and vehicles that also then you can contribute. That makes up most of that 603 that's needed over in leasing fine.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to look at it, I guess. For example, we've got, there's $80,000 additional personnel, so salaries and benefits, as well as there's another $40,000 in there without capital.
Yep. So it is a subsidy, a plug. I hate to use that, but plugs the shortfalls in cash.
Does the grants flow into transportation and then over to?
No, they flow directly to the airport fund.
All right, I'm still confused. So our revenue is, we're looking at $4,146,000 in revenue from grants and reimbursements.
Grants alone.
Now, it says grants and reimbursements here.
Okay, well, that's the accounting title of that group, but that line item 440,200 is grants only.
So we're looking at $4,000,001 in grants, not grants and reimbursements.
Grants, directly from
That's part
the
of
state.
They're the same thing.
That's
in that line item, right?
Yeah.
Right.
That's part of the problem. I kept trying to figure out how much.
Yeah, now the other
is reimbursed.
transfers in, just from fund to fund, are at the very bottom.
Okay, well, that makes it, all right.
Ty, you want to hit your highlights on your O&M capital?
It hasn't changed much. You see the administrative reimbursements again.
You speak up high, I can't hear you, sorry.
Administrative reimbursements, I can't spit it out. It's a little higher this year along with everybody else's. The biggest change we'll see is on the projects on the operating capital because of the runway project and the airport layout plans that the consulting firm's still working on. Got a field truck in there I was hoping you wouldn't see.
Yeah, right, there's two of them.
Where's that line item for the fuel trucks?
If you look at the breakdown of page
Next page.
86, yeah.
Operating capitals of vehicles. I had the plow truck this last year, which was 56,000. This year, we're hoping for a new replacement fuel truck for 115.
I thought you had a new fuel truck.
No.
I got one last year.
There's 4 trucks altogether.
I got 4 trucks going, 2 each other.
I think we approved a new one last year, but apparently there's other.
Yeah, one for jet fuel, one for gas at each airport.
Ty, how old are the 2 trucks right now that you wanting to replace?
The one at Lee Fines is 1988, and the truck at Grand Blaze is 1985.
85. These are specialized trucks, so age is relevant. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the life expectancy is of a fuel truck. But
it's not 35 years.
I don't know, we can buy them and they sell them, so, somebody else is using them.
I will give a quick update on the airport projects real quick. In September, the mayor and I met with Mr. Page, and we were told at the time that they were going to very quickly release all of these projects. These projects are being held up right now. Every single one of them. Everything is on hold at both airports because of the swap deal that we're trying to do with the state. When we turned in that letter, the FAA realized that back in 1998, they never actually made us the sponsor, even though they've been paying us millions and millions of dollars for the last 24, 25 years. The sponsor is still listed as Missouri Department of State Parks. And so at the time, we were told, if you remember, sir, that they were going to get right on that, and a month later, they were going to go ahead and release funds to get the master plan going, because we've got a master plan at both airports that's budgeted for this year, and get us going with the taxiway project. That was about a month and a half ago. I have been calling and calling. There is no movement on that. When I helped Ty build this budget for the airport capital, we had assumed that some of that master plan money would be spent in this year. So I can tell you right now, we're not going to spend $317,500 in capital this year. We're going to spend less than that, but we're going to spend more next year because these projects are still on hold, and here we are, almost on November 1st, and they're likely not going to start this year. They're just not. So we are hopeful that they're going to work out their paperwork on their end at both the state level and the federal level. But we all know that the higher up in government you get, the slower they get. So I don't know how long that's going to take. I don't know when. I keep hearing, it'll be next week. I've heard that 5 times now. So I don't know when. I mean, they tell me that as soon as they get it all out of the way, these projects will be approved and we can move forward. We've met with Ty and Brian met with them at the 4 States Conference this year, and they're telling us that everything's going to be fine. there's just a lot of unknowns as far as when those projects are actually going to start. And I wanted to make sure that the board understands that. So everything that you see that's the 90-10 that's going to be in both airports, because there's another project in Grand Blaze that's the same way, is basically on hold. Frankly, technically the airport, the apron project isn't even done yet. The apron project is waiting on some parts and pieces we're waiting on supply chain issues. So the apron project, our beautiful apron, and the apron looks great, is like 98% done because there are just a few minor things here and there that have not been wrapped up yet, and we're waiting on some parts and pieces to come in for them to finish that. So just wanted to give a quick update on those projects because right now we are moving at a snail's pace. And while I appreciate the mayor helping me out there, and I was very optimistic that something was going to move quickly there, here we are a month and a half, 2 months later, and we are still in the same place, sir, that we were the day that you and I sat down with Mr. Page. So just wanted to share that so that the board understands where we are with that.
I have one outside the box question, should be for Gina. Do we have the ability to do hot air balloon festival between the two airports possibly?
No.
Good thought.
So, help me understand the administrative review. Sorry, go ahead. The administrative reimbursement, overall in general fund is like 22% increase, okay? But at Grand Waves it's like 60%, I'm sorry, Lucy Fine is like up 60%, and the Grand Wave is like 160%. Why is there such a difference?
It's all about how the pie gets divided. So the pie changes, or one piece gets smaller, the other pieces of the pie absorb it.
Okay.
So 2024 does have a general fund change because we are funding full-time engineer plus moving services to engineer. So that's a government service now that also affects that. So you've got all these moving pieces. Now, of course, $66,000 for Lacey Fine is also just a guess also of whatever construction service, if there's other general fund, because we've got some projects moving, I don't know, there going to be services tied to these steeper projects? And if it doesn't, then it'll go down. So it's all about, here's the pie, and if transportation doesn't take up as much space, and I'm going to throw out engineering services, then they may spend it more time on projects at Lacey Fine. So it's a moving target. Yes, 66 is a jump. Without looking at without having my Excel sheet, I don't have the pinpoint. I can probably pinpoint the
Grand Waves as a percentage is usually much more than that too, but just.
Yeah. I will get my details and I can probably get you guys an answer after clarify.
I've got one question. It's for you, Johnny. Going back to salaries. Looking at the increase in salaries from 2023 to 2024, we're actually reducing staff. First of all, I'm just curious why we're cutting out a full-time position.
Operating.
You're right, one, no, you had 4 airport technicians full-time.
Airport's not adding or deleting any,
Yeah,
they
I'm
should
seeing
not.
4 and then the vacancy full-time equivalent of 3. I'm just curious. I'm on page 86.
Yeah, airport's personnel changes are not. However, they've also had some vacancies here and there. So next year, assuming all vacancies will be filled majority of the year. So that might be the dollar change you're gonna see. But they should not have any change in the count.
If you look, I had to disagree with your paperwork, because if you look, AC Fine is going from 4.6.
Correct.
To 4.33.
Or going to 4.33. I'm
Okay.
sorry. I don't know what they were last year, but they're going to 4.33 and they're at 3, and Grand Blaze is 3.13.
And those should be the same as last year.
I'm sorry, I was looking at the first column thing, and that was last year.
Okay.
You're correct, my apologies.
Certain days on 416 to 4.33.
All right, Grand Blaze,
And it's equivalent.
page, we'll just jump right to 88.
It's about how much the part-time is.
Revenue Revenue, it's kind of the same story. You got your grants, which are the 90/10s, and all the projects tied to the grants. Fuel and everything's tied to just expected volume plus that markup on cost on fuel. Transfer in from transportation is $394 this year, and 87,000 of that is our 10% for the airport capital piece of the grant funded project, which is the cable burial and master plan. And the difference then also includes, you also have an additional capital requests. So you have $1 million in capital requests total. And again, it's plug to balance the fund. So that's. Okay.
Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't this administrative reimbursement, didn't that include the cartograph also?
No,
No, that's-
administrative reimbursement is what I calculate in my cost accounting, and I've marked it to look, and I will get details on why that's different.
Your cartograph is under professional services.
Yeah, the operating capital, the big projects over there would be the cable, the electrical cable line. Justin, I don't know if you've been involved in any of those talks. They're talking about burying the power line that's next to the highway.
Up front, like up on 54th?
Yeah, right next to the highway there. That's what that project.
Clearing the runway,
Yeah.
Is that a grant project?
90/10, yes.
I have a question. When's the last time hangar rental that went up?
Grand Blaze, we raised it 3 years ago.
I think it's time to go up.
When was the last time you reviewed? I know you do that regularly, don't you, like compared to the area around us?
We raised it was the last time I ever.
Oh.
Yes, because everything's going up.
Yeah.
Camden usually doesn't go up, that's our competition, isn't it? Camden usually,
Yeah.
because they're usually lower, seems like.
Camden direct, but then you got Eldon and Nish, I mean, you've got some little,
Yeah.
yeah.
We have people on waiting
Sale,
list.
but Campton.
We have people on waiting list to get it here, don't we?
Look at that.
Something to talk about.
Well, I think that's part of the strategy of the.
Do you want me to say something about it?
Leasing fine is that, isn't that part of the strategy of leasing fine is to be able to obtain ownership and do more hangars out there?
Absolutely, and thanks to Cole. Cole has been a key part of this and been very helpful. He's helped us secure a representative that will help us fund this bill next year. That will hopefully turn the airport over to us.
And by doing that, that's what opens up our options for development.
Yeah, I gave him a tour yesterday and I showed, so I've never actually been up there. So I can show him around and kind of look at what flat ground we've got, what we can do with it.
We've got a lot of potential. We've got 8 hanger plots that are ready. We've got about 20 private individuals that want hanger plots. And then there's also, as Gina has pointed out many times, the ability for us to use our 90/10 to buy hangars that we would lease ourselves. So we've got options for private land leases, and then we've also got options for us building our own hangars and making revenue off of both. One would be land lease, and the other one would be hangar rental. We've got room for all of it.
Commercial service.
We just can't do it under the thumb of the Missouri Department of Natural Resources and Parks.
What do we need to do at Grand Lakes? Like more land?
More land, yes. More land.
Buy some houses?
We have our eye on a piece of property that we've been told is going to come up for sale, but we don't know.
Sure, let's talk about that later.
Can I throw an idea out real quick, since I live right by that thing? It's possible to move that road and not have the road come up where it does now. And let's say we bought out a piece of property adjacent to where I am. I know there's a property there that kind of joins up, and we could reroute that road to a different spot and then possibly acquire land where, because now you can't move planes across the road, I'm sure, right? You can't put hangars over on the other side. Yeah, but if they're moved Airport Road, which I think that entrance is really bad anyway, then there's some land in that area that might be up for
There's a
sale.
master plan going on, so some of that might be, I mean, I'm talking offline to Mike and Ty, but we're going through the master planning right now for both airports, so I would get with Ty and Mike and
I wouldn't like
understand that master, you know, and then maybe that.
I'd just like to meet up with you guys at some point.
The airport property extends to across the road, too, just so you know.
Yes, I know, but you can't put hangars over there and move planes across the road, right? So by moving the road, you might be able to acquire land and thus build hangars there as well.
Yeah, I would get with them and understand the master plan.
Whose phone is that?
Any more questions on Grand Lakes? I know we're probably getting tired. Page 93, I will make it real quick because this is just the final piece of all those transfers out of general fund, transportation fund, and CIT fund for your EATs from your TIF districts. And at this point, all our incentive districts are pay-as-you-go, so they're in and out. The big change back in 2021 was the payoff of the Pruitt Point bonds. So right now, they're all in and out. So this is just the holding place in the budget where those funds go in and out. No, that's all I got.
That's it, sure.
I'm positive. See you on Monday.
Yeah, Monday, 5:30. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, see you on Monday. Thank you, folks.
Do we decide 5:30 on Monday?
Mike, Jerry sent me another.
She already got that done.
I got that email.
Well, there we go.
I kind of like Mike's 3:30 venue.
Yeah.
Oh, 3.
That was